And welcome back to Online Equestrian Lessons. I'm Katie. We're here with Moose. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to get your horse ready for competitions and also training the young horse. So I'm going to show you some of the equipment that I use a couple times to a few times a week to just get your young horse or your horse that you're just needing a little bit more training on, just a little bit more supple, a little bit more on the bit, moving a little bit better and things like that. I think lunging your horse is so important. It really does help just get your horse to move better and really adds to his training and his skills. So I'm going to show you some of the equipment that I use on my horse to lunge him. Guys, so it's really bright out here, so I hope you guys can see this. But basically before I lunge, so I've got my horse's bridle on, and I'm going to do up the reins. This is really important because you don't want the reins flopping around, hitting him in the face, or you don't want him to accidentally step on them because it could break the reins and also really scare him as well. So basically what I do is I just grab them and I give them a little bit of a twist, okay? Then I'll take my throat latch and I'll put it through just like this, and then I'll just hook it up. So it'll look something like this, and it'll just really keep them out of the way and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how to hook up the side reins. My horse's equipment, I just use a fitted dressage pad, and I do use a little bit of a fleece pad just so it's just a little bit more comfy on his back. This is the Surcingle that I have. Any Surcingle will work. I like the nylon ones. You can get a leather one if you want, but the nylon ones are just nice and cheap. I've got a dressage girth on here, and then these are my side reins. So I like the donut side reins. I don't recommend the ones that have elastic because unless you have a super sensitive horse, the horses do learn how to lean against these, and that is not good because he will lean on your hands when you get on. So this has a little bit of pull on it, so they will stretch and give a little bit just so your horse can get used to them without getting nervous, but he's not going to lean on these as much. So these side reins I have had forever. I think I got them from State Line Tack. They've just really lasted well. So anyways, I'm going to show you how to measure. So when your horse's head is straight out, let me push his head a little bit that way. You should be able to fit a fist between the buckle here. Let me brighten this up. Between the buckle and his bit. So if you were to go like this, that's how long it should be for all of your collection work, okay? When you first start, you want it to be, a little bit looser just so you can get used to them, especially if your horse has never had side reins. I would lunge them without, so I would just clip it up here, lunge him without, okay, and then go ahead and put them on once he's warmed up. But that's so if you do a fist here, and then once you hook it on, he'll be collected a little bit. So that's how I work him. And then you have these rings on your Surcingle. These are only for when your horse is really in upper level. Pretty much all of the horses that I am training to side reins, they get their side reins way down here. So you have this sort of line right here where your horse's elbow is, and that is where I put my side reins. Because the point of using these side reins isn't just to get your horse's head to collect, but it is to get him to stretch down, so that way he will bring his back up and stretch over his top line. And the only way you're going to be able to get your horse to bring his back up is if his poll is lower than his withers. So he's got to drop his head, and that way he can bring his back up. And then that will really help him to start building up that top line muscle. It will help him to start building up that muscle he needs above his withers and everything. So if your horse is a bit hollow right here, he'll be able to build all of that up. So that's just really, really going to help his overall muscle and just training in general. So start down there, teach your horse to really give and relax and everything. And then over time, once he builds that muscle up, then he'll really be able to come up and collect and everything. But it's also building his muscle up to be able to carry the rider too. So Moose is only 5 years old, so he's got got a lot of muscle to build, especially in his hindquarters and everything that you can see. But anyway, that's just kind of how I start my horses, and it really also helps them get fit. So I'm going to finish hooking him up and we'll start lunging. All right, creature of habit. So generally when I lunge, I always start lunging the same direction. That's just how my horses really respond to best. And because they are a creature of habit and they really like routine, I try to say all of the same words and try to do everything the same, at least while they're training, and then you can start changing it up a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to start lunging how I normally lunge, and you guys can kind of see kind of how this works. So this is the way I would lunge to teach a young horse. Voice commands to teach a young horse how to move and go correctly in the bridle, build that muscle up. And also canter work as well. So if you're trying to muscle up a horse and condition them, especially for competition, or you're trying to train a young horse, okay, this is how I would lunge them. And I would start probably, if your horse doesn't know how to canter, I would probably start lunging and doing this 3 to 4 times a week and riding fewer times. Moose is doing pretty well now, so I'm lunging about 1 or 2 times a week and riding the rest. But we're still doing all of our canter work on the lunge until he gets muscled up enough that he can canter really nice and controlled on the lunge, and then we'll move to cantering on his back. So I start in the walk just like this. I don't like my horses to go off and rush. So Moose did that when I first started training him. He would just rush around. I always bring them back to the walk, and I always try to teach them to give and relax and stretch. And those are the 3 words I tell them constantly. Like, and give, and stretch, and relax, good boy, and walk. Okay? And then they get to learning those commands, and it really helps them relax. Because when we get on their back, especially if we're doing dressage or Western dressage, but pretty much any discipline, even walking down the trail, we want our horses to relax and just be able to walk when we get on them and not rush. Walk on. If they're being a little bit slow, you can move them out a little bit. Good boy. Good boy. Good. And then I like to do some halt transitions. And whoa. Easy, whoa. And whoa. Easy, whoa. And whoa. Good boy. Good boy. Whoa. 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 Good boy. So he's still learning. Walk on. Good boy. He's still learning. So I would do about 4 or 5 of those until he is a little bit better. But that was all from voice command. I didn't do any thing with my lunge line there, because I am holding the phone, but that was pretty good. You could see his little wheels are turning and thinking. All right, so we've had a few walks around. We're going to go ahead and trot. Now, this is really important. Try to stay in the same place. Try not to rush around and chase your horse and whip all the time. Let them make a mistake, okay? So I'm going to ask really lightly here. T-rat, T-rat. And if he doesn't go, I tap my whip on the ground. Good boy. And now I stay in the same spot, and if he gets slower, I come with my whip a bit. You don't whip the horse, but you make a noise on the ground, okay? And then you're quiet again, because we want our horses to be forward thinking, and we don't want to have to wear ourselves out. He's like, 1,300 pounds, so I don't want to have to try to make him move, or it's always just going to be a tug of war type game all the time, and it's going to wear me out. And so try to just be really light so they can feel a fly land on them, so they can definitely hear you, and they can feel a little tap with the whip if you need it. Good. Now walk. Easy walk. Easy. Good boy. And T-rat. T-rat. So see how he's a little bit behind the forward thinking. So he's a little bit slow to my aid right there. So we do a few transitions. And walk. And tear up. Tear up. So this helps him also when I get on and ride. So that way he'll be a little bit more forward thinking and a little bit more in front of my leg. But it's also helping him build that muscle and condition a bit. And walk. Walk. And tear up. Tear up. Good boy. That was a little bit better. He didn't get so rigid in the bridle. And walk. Easy walk. Easy walk. And T-rat. Good boy. And stretch. And stretch. And give. Good. So that corner was better. So he wants to fall out in his shoulder over there by that barrel. So he kind of lifts his head and goes against the bit a little bit. So give. And stretch. Good boy. Give. Relax. Good boy. And canter. Canter. Good. Come. Canter. Good boy. T-Rot. Now, after you canter, don't just let them stop. Make them go forward. Otherwise, if you let them stop all the time, when you start riding them, they'll just want to stop at the canter, and that could be really bad. You don't want to go over their head. And walk. Now, he's a really big boy. He's a little cob, and so, or a big cob, I should say. So cantering, for a lot of bigger horses, especially draft breeds, can be pretty hard. And it's harder for them to build that muscle and everything. And so you might find that you almost need to chase your horse around a little bit. The easiest way to get them to canter, and you probably know because of the movement of the camera, but if you will try to, make a little bit of a circle around you here, so you're not getting too close to your horse, because they can, when they go into the canter, turn and kick towards you. So keep your distance, but if you canter, stay behind. You don't want to come in front of the shoulder because they'll stop, but stay right here and canter in place a little bit. It really helps the horse to be able to mimic your sort of movements and mimic your body language, and it actually helps them to jump into the canter so much better. The horse really does mimic our body language, so if we really just relax, breathe deep, we can actually get a horse to just stop by our body language. So same thing, if we want our horse to go forward, if we mimic that, it really does help them to jump into that canter, and eventually you won't have to canter in place yourself, but it does actually help them so much. So if you're having a hard time getting your horse to go forward, try it, and it really does help. So we're going to end that there, and now we're going to go on to another part of conditioning that you can do on the lunge. This way, make sure when you're letting your horse back out on the lunge that you stay away from his hindquarters. Okay, now every horse, easy, walk, good boy. Every horse has a side that is harder for them, okay? So especially when you're starting out, you're gonna probably find a side that your horse does really well on, stays out on the circle. And then you'll probably find a side that your horse really just wants to come in and lean in and just really has a problem with their balance. And especially if your horse is like getting the wrong lead in things, or just really having a hard time, maybe he is stopping and trying to turn around and go the other way. I would not chalk that up as being disrespectful or anything like that, but it's probably just a balance issue. So that's where you really have to be patient, because it's not really that he's doing anything bad, it's just very hard for him, okay? Okay, so because Moose really falls in on this side and he really wants to sort of look to the outside, I've kept the outside rein on the hole that it was on. And on this side, I've tightened it up a few notches just so that he can try to figure out the bend that he needs and everything. Then you can also take your whip and just kind of toss it at his belly a little bit to mimic your inside leg to just help him get that bend and everything. Give. Stretch down. Good boy. Good boy. And give. And give. Come. Good boy. Walk. And trot. Good boy. Come. Good. Okay, so make sure you go both ways. Make sure you walk, trot, canter both ways. Really important. Let's see a canter on this side. Canter. Canter. Good boy. That right there is where he's just not balanced enough. Give and trot. Good boy. Okay. So make him go forward into that connection. Rebalance himself. And then you can always go again. Canter. There. Trot. There was a few better steps. So this is the second part of our lunging. So after you've walked, trot, cantered your horse both ways on the lunge, and you've done a little work with the side reins, this is a really good place to start to get your horse. Say he's lazy and he trips a lot, or he's young and he just doesn't know where his feet are, or you're just needing to gain a lot more conditioning and muscle and everything. Ground poles are perfect for that. You can even raise them on like little blocks like these after your horse gets used to going through them and everything. So you either do 1 or you do 3, because if you do 2, generally your horse will jump it. But this is about 1 stride or 4 feet right in front of the other distance apart. And I'm going to show you how I lunge my horse over them. Most trotting here. You can start at the walk if you want. Really just depends on how you think your horse is going to go. T-rot, T-rot. Good boy. So as you can see, he's done this probably 4 times now, lunging over the poles, and when he started, he did not have a clue what to do. He didn't know where his feet were. Come, come. And now he's just doing really well. Walk. So it doesn't take him too long to figure it out, but I'm going to show you some tricks on how to sort of help your horse over the pole. So the biggest thing is getting your horse out on the lunge to get them to go over the middle of the pole. So if you take your whip, you can kind of, your lunge whip, you can kind of do this and say out, get out, and eventually a horse will get used to that and stay out on the lunge. Let's try. Boy. Good, so get out, and he should go over the middle. Good boy. Now, if your horse is slowing down, you can do something like come, come. Good. See how he reacted to that? Or if your horse just wants to try to fly through them, go T-rot, T-rot, T-rot. Good. Or trot, whatever word you say for trot, just keep repeating it, so that way they go at an even tempo. So these poles help with even tempo. Trot. Go for it. Right there, he's getting a little stuck. These help with even tempo. They help with figuring out walk, where their legs are. They help build muscle, so many different things. That was a fairly good striding for him right there. I would probably eventually, when he gets a little bit more muscle, space them out a bit more, so he's getting a little bit more reach through his shoulder and having to push with his hindquarters a little bit more. But because he's still young and he's only done this about 4 or 5 times, this is a good sort of length. And as you can see, the side reins are nice and long, so we can stretch over them, stretch over his back, and really gain that top line muscle. So Moose is done with his lunging. He did so good today. So the first thing after I get done lunging, before I walk up to the arena or go out the arena gate, is I take the side reins off and just clip them up here so it's nice and safe for when he's walking. But it also just gives him a really nice break and lets him know that he did a good job, and that's a good reward for him. So anyways, guys, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to comment down below. If you're new here, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out, and we are so excited to be able to be making these videos for you all. So anyways, I hope you all have a very blessed day and happy riding.